Well, I even brought it up and stuck the corn head on it just to get everybody revved up. And all I managed to accomplish was getting myself revved up in the process. So yeah, she is 100% all back together, fully functional, pretty much ready to rock and roll if I ever wanted to. All the sheet metal's back on, which surprisingly went pretty damn good, all things considered, for how fucked up it was. The only things we really fought were this spot right here, where this light goes through, because there's a tab bent. This panel has a tab bent over that goes underneath the side panel, and then the light stud goes through both of them. And try as we may, we couldn't get it lined up perfect. So if you look, there's still kind of a buckle right here in this side panel, but this whole corner, if I actually never did make any video fixing the sheet metal, I probably should have, but if you recall, this whole corner was shoved in flat next to, or up against the grain tank. This radius was gone. This was all crunched up like that, and the light was busted off, and I actually couldn't get 3 of the bolts out that run along the grain tank here. I couldn't get 3 of them out because that side panel was folded up against them. So it's amazing that we got as much pulled out as we can, and obviously there's still some wrinkles in the side of the tank that if you wanted to spend a lot more time with some heat and some dolly blocks and quenching it to shrink the metal up again, you could get out. If you look, and it's probably not showing up that great on the video, but that corner right from about the tip of my finger on around is still kind of fucked up. But like I say, compared to what we started with, it's amazing that it went back that straight, that easy. But the lower panels didn't really take much of a hit. And then the only other thing that we fought was this panel here, and it's still not perfect, but it's a lot better than it was. When I took it apart, I don't know if it was from the, I'm assuming it's from the rollover, but I'm not 100% sure. This angle bracket sits on top of this, and that's what holds the door, or helps support the front of the door. And that was tore out up through here and down here, and that was all pushed down. There was a chunk of steel physically missing in here, and I patched it back together the best I could, and it had obviously, throughout its lifetime, it'd been rubbing here too, and I think that's part of what was making the, or part of what had some of the steel missing from the side here, was just from life. I think it had been wearing, because like I say, it had been rubbing against the side of the rotary screen housing. So I patched all that back together the best I could, and actually cut a sliver of steel to weld in here, because it appeared initially that it was supposed to come all the way out to here. Well, we got it all back together, and the door would close to about this point here, and it was rubbing on the rotary screen housing, and it wouldn't make it past that bolt. Well, part of the reason is because the hole in the pin for this top hinge plate, or this top hinge right here, is slopped out. It's, and you can pick the door up a fair bit. So when the door's just hanging on the hinges, it's actually leaning down just a hair. But what I ended up having to do, and the other thing is, when I put this back together, that elevator ended up slightly farther forward than the one that came off of it, at least by the wear marks and everything on the machine. So since all of this tin mounts on these two flanges that are physically welded to the elevator, and for some reason they didn't leave any provision in any of the hinges to make up for this elevator having to swing back and forth to fit the combine. You kind of had to make up for that difference too. So what I ended up having to do was I laid a straight edge along here, and if you sighted down it, that line was actually kind of coming forward at an angle. So I laid a square on here and drew a straight line down and basically cut a sliver of tin off of there and squared this corner out. And now it misses that bolt, it misses this. The only thing you got to do is you got to pick up on it to set it on top of that ledge. So like I say, all in all, for as screwed up as the side of this machine was, if all I had to do was shave a little bit of tin right there and do a little bit of finagling to get that light to fit again, I am very, very impressed. So, and then that prop rod did not have a hook for it, and I looked all over in my manual, could not find a picture of this area that showed that elevator at this angle. I looked in the parts book, and all they showed was a rubber coated tubing clamp, and it said how did they word it? It said clip, comma, prop rod. And naturally it shows up in the parts breakdown for the right hand side panels, and the elevator is not in that parts breakdown, so it just has this clip down in the exploded parts diagram down here, and it doesn't show where it goes anywhere on the combine, and I couldn't see anywhere where it would fit down here. So I just really quick today made this hook up. So now it can't just be swinging around in there all willy-nilly. So there's that. But yeah, other than that, and I finally, well, I had it down at the garage, I had to finish up. I made that prop rod thing today. I fixed that panel today because we got all this stuff on last night, and it was like 7 o'clock by the time Dad and I finally got done putting everything on. So I finished that panel today, made that today, and put that light on today, and that pretty much finished it up. And then, oh yeah, that's where I was going. I finally put the right amount of air in the tires, which actually made it stand up a little better. Turns out it only had 7 pounds in it, which is why it was squatting so hard, because I never did check it after I aired it up to get it off the trailer. We aired them up where they looked about the same and drove it off. So, yeah. And now, there's a few other odds and ends. I obviously gotta, I actually should have looked to see if we got any in the garage or in the barn. I doubt it, but need to make the new plexiglass window for the sight glass and that front grain tank extension. When I was working on it the other night, I turned the headlights on for the first time, and these bottom 3 do not come on. The top 4 do, the bottom do not. And I'm gonna end up having to rewire the lights because it's kind of a hack job. Somebody's been in here patching wires in and stuff, and they did I don't think it's the guy that I got it from that did any of this, because this just is, if you saw the guy's equipment, this is just not the kind of job he would do. So I'm thinking it was the guys he bought it from that did all this. But like this right here is all light wiring, and they got it together with Scotch locks, which are the worst fucking invention for automotive wiring ever. If you see anybody going at a piece of equipment with Scotch locks, not only slap the box of Scotch locks out of their hand, slap them right across the side of the head. Do not use fucking Scotch locks. They're terrible. I don't know why anybody uses them. I don't know why they still make them. They are terrible. Use butt splices like you're supposed to. But I'm gonna rewire all the headlights to get them to where they actually work. Got to run a new wire out to the auger light because that wire's been butt spliced together in like 4 or 5 places, and the jacket's all coming off of it. And I'm surprised it's not shorted out because there's some exposed wire up there. So actually it is probably partially shorted out because you swing the auger out all the way, it gets dim. You swing it about halfway closed, it brightens back up, and then you close it all the way, it gets dim again. So you gotta get the lights fixed, or get the light wiring fixed. What else? The backlighting for the temp gauge, yeah, the backlighting for the backlight for the temp gauge doesn't work, so I'm gonna have to pop the dash apart and see if I can replace the bulb, because some of these later white gauges, the bulbs weren't replaceable. They were just a cheap plastic gauge, but some of them you can replace the bulb. So hopefully it's one you can replace the bulb. So get that working. Need to replace the belts for the AC pump because this one squawks. Obviously it's partially because it's loose, but that belt's also shot. That belt needs replaced. And while I'm at it, I'm gonna replace the other two, those guys right there, for the hydraulic pump drive, because if you're in there you might as well change them all. I think that was really all I got left to do to the combine. I probably need to get the concave freed up because it's a little stiff from sitting, obviously. I am probably going to replace this bearing and this bearing because they appear to be original, and those things tend to go out since they only make about 1/4 of a turn. Actually this one goes all the way around because it's on an eccentric, but this one only makes about 1/4 turn, so probably replace those 2 bearings. Yeah, I think that's really all I got to do to the combine before it can, I mean, it could go to the field right now if you really wanted to, but that's the stuff I want to get taken care of. And then as far as the corn head goes, the 7300 uses these lever locks, whereas this uses the over-center cam style locks. And obviously the head is older, so it's got the lever locks, and I need to come in here and add on the over-center cam style lock so that this head will work with this combine. And then vice versa, to run the new grain table on the 7300, I got to put these levers on the feeder house so that I can run that white grain table that I got now. So yeah, and obviously by hopefully before the end of next summer I can come up with a 6-row head for this thing, because I think my plan is I'm going to run the 540 for 1 more year, and next fall I want to buy a 6-row white 5400 planter. But I want to have the head before I have the planter, because I don't want to have a planter and not have a head. So there's one out in South Dakota right now that they want $1,500 for, to clear out in South Dakota, and there ain't a lick of paint left on it, which tells you it's been over a boatload of acres, and I don't want to drive clear the hell out there with a trailer to find out I'm paying $1,500 for a corn head that's wore so thin because it's been over so many acres that you might as well haul scrap. So hopefully I can find one a little closer here. I need to call Bryant and Spallinger and see if either one of them got a corn head sitting on their lot, because you never know. But For some reason, them bastards are normally proud of these older heads for some reason. It's like a deer head, okay, you can get a lot of money out of those, but a 6-year-old white, they were asking Bryant, back when my buddy Tyler had that white 7300, he was looking for a grain table for it, and Bryant had a 13-foot flex. They wanted $3 grand for it. It's like, boys, it's a 13-foot white flex. There is no demand for them whatsoever. It ain't like somebody with a John Deere combine is going out and going to buy a white head and adapt it to a adapt it to a Deere combine. No, they're going to go out and buy a 213 flex and put it on their combine. So sometimes they price these things a little ridiculous. I would spend $1,500 on a decent 6-row head. I ain't going to spend $3 grand on a 6-row head for a combine that ain't worth and you can go out and spend $4 grand and buy a whole combine with both heads. So and I guess there is 2 other things I got to do. I got to find another rotary screen, because this one, if you remember, has got the crack in it that we couldn't get welded up because that screen just blows apart anytime you hit it with heat. And plus it's got a weeble wobble to it, so I think that screen still ain't. The housing and everything and the shaft is fine. I think the screen itself is physically ain't somehow. So still need to find a different rotary screen for it. In the process of working on it, I noticed that the top hinge on the door is kind of busticated, which is probably due to the fact that the prop arm that goes here, that's like on that side there, is not here. So we're gonna have to find one of these and fix the door once I find it. There ain't no sense in fixing the door before I find it, because you'll probably bust the hinge again, but find that before next year. It's kind of a shame there's actually an 8900 white like 4 miles north of town here. Been sitting outside ever since I can remember, and it's a shame because what I was told was when the guy got it, it was a really nice machine. But it's literally been sitting outside since I was a little kid. I remember it sitting out next to the guy's shed. It's just been sitting there. And it would probably make an excellent parts machine for this. It probably got all the tin I need. I could probably get all the tin off the other side for it and just replace all the tin on that other side so it all fits right. And other odds and end parts, it'd just be nice to have it around, because there's a lot of parts on that that'll fit this. And it's literally right north of town. I can just take a tractor and a chain up there and we can drag the damn thing home, and wham bam thank you Sam. Ain't gotta haul it, ain't gotta go looking for it, nothing. But it is for sale, and last price I heard on it, he was asking $3,500 for a combine that ain't been in the field or been inside of a barn in at least 26 years, because that's how long I've been around, and it's been sitting in the same spot ever since well, take that back. It's not the same spot. It used to be on the south side of the barn. Now it's on the north side of the barn, but it's never been in the barn. But maybe one of these days he'll actually, like, I'd give him like scrap price for it. That's about all it's worth. Because up until this thing showed up, that's the only 8000 series white combine around here that I know of anymore. So it ain't like somebody's gonna want to buy it for parts, because there ain't nothing around here to put parts on, or take parts off and put parts on, except for this thing now. So but yeah, and while I got the head on it, I'm gonna take this down to the shop and flip all the snouts up and blow it off, because that never got done. That 4.0 head doesn't look, I mean, it looks kind of ridiculous, but it doesn't look nearly as ridiculous on there as I thought it would. It kind of fits it. Obviously, when you're opening a field up, you got to take the ladder and swing it up, because your next row of corn is going to end up right about here, so right damn near in the middle of that ladder. You can hear that AC drive belt squalling. I would tighten it up, but the belt's junk and I'm scared you put any more pressure on it, you run it, it's gonna blow the belt up. Oh, that's the other thing, gotta charge the AC system, which Tyler's got all the stuff to do that, so get that done next summer. It's so quiet until you give it a little bit of throttle, and then that 354 really wakes up. I love the way this thing sounds. Oh, and don't mind the Peterbilt. A friend of ours was having a bad day yesterday. He's pretty sure he blew a head gasket hauling corn. So it's dead. Well, it's not dead, it'll run, but obviously if it's got a bad head gasket, it might as well be dead. Naturally, it had to happen with a full hopper bottom, so it's sitting there full. It just sounds so good. Four things the British did right. The David Brown tractors, the Massey Ferguson tractors, the 354 Perkins, and the Rolls-Royce Merlin. I'll give you credit for them four things. Five things. I'll give you credit for them triple expansion steam engines too. Those things are monsters. Kind of a shame you guys don't build tractors anymore. You guys used to have one hell of a farm equipment industry. Sounds like the government pretty much killed that for you. Kind of like ours did. But anyhow, I guess that's really all there is to say. She's done. So, with that, I'm gonna clean the cornet up and probably spend the rest of the day. I gotta bring the wood chipper up to the shop and go over it and sharpen some saw chains and service some chainsaws and get ready for that part of the season. So I guess we will catch you guys on the next one.